Hello, welcome to the Inside the Birds NFL Conference Championship preview. I'm Geoff Mosher. We are down to just 3 remaining games in the NFL season. We have the 2 conference championship games. AFC, you got the Chiefs and the Bills, which I think a lot of people expected or at least could have predicted going into the year. In the NFC, you have the Eagles versus the Commanders, which is probably not a game that a lot of people would have expected going into the year. Could the Eagles, being in the conference championship game, have been expected? Sure. They had done a lot after last year's implosion to get themselves positioned. However, they were at one point 2-2 and not looking very good going into the bye. So I don't know at week 5 of the year if anybody had the Commanders and the Eagles in the NFC Championship game. But like I said in last week's show, there's always a surprise. There is always a surprise team that advances further in the playoffs that you think. And this year it is the Washington Commanders, and they will travel to Philadelphia. And for the 3rd time this year, you will get the Eagles Commanders in a game. And the winner of that will go to the Super Bowl. The winner of Bills Chiefs will go to the Super Bowl. And as we all know, the Chiefs are trying to become the first team in the Super Bowl era to three-peat. They are back-to-back Super Bowl champions. No team has ever hoisted the Lombardi Trophy 3 years in a row. It would be the same head coach. It would be the same quarterback. It would be the same defensive coordinator. So the Chiefs are chasing history here against a very familiar foe on their own. The Eagles and Commanders are familiar because they play each other twice a year. They are NFC East rivals, but the Bills-Chiefs rivalry, playoff rivalry especially over the last few years, has become must-see TV. It has become 2 great quarterbacks against each other in Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. It has become a good storyline of the head coach, the legendary head coach, against one of his disciples, and Andy Reid against Sean McDermott, who, of course, was on Andy Reid's staff in Philadelphia. And then, of course, the Eagles being in this Final Four ties into it, too. There's a lot of Andy Reid flavor. He left an impact on the Eagles that still remains. And, of course, he's left an impact on the league. In fact, if you look at last week's divisional round in the AFC in particular, you had Andy Reid coaching. You had 2 Andy Reid disciples coaching against each other in the Bills-Ravens game with Sean McDermott versus John Harbaugh, both of them who coach under Andy here in Philadelphia. And then Andy himself had to face one of his former players. It wasn't very long, but DeMeco Ryans, who is the head coach of the Texans, played for Andy here in Philadelphia. So there was a whole lot of Andy Reid, Philadelphia Eagles connection going on there. And it has been amazing to see the impact that Andy Reid has had on the NFL and the trickle-down impact. And there are a lot of people rooting against the Chiefs now. It's taken a while because usually when you start to win and win a lot, you go from being, wow, that's a great story, love that, to I'm tired of this team. You get fatigued. Happened to the Patriots, but it happened to the Patriots because they became somewhat unlikable because of their scandals, whether it was Deflategate, whether it was the tape issue with the Jets and Mangini, Spygate. You had those 2 things hanging over the franchise. Bill Belichick never came off as an overly likable guy, not a lot of personality. Brady started dating Giselle and then married Giselle, and then he became the hotshot Hollywood-ish quarterback who got every single call from the referees. I think people forget that when they look at this Chiefs team. But that's where it feels to me like the Chiefs are starting to – I don't know if it's fatigue. I think generally they have a lot of likable players that people have enjoyed watching. Yeah, here and there may be a guy that you don't like or this, that, and the other. But in general, I think the Chiefs haven't gone to be unlikable. And Patrick Mahomes has not become an unlikable figure among NFL circles or NFL fans. But the penalties against other teams playing the Chiefs, and I know that there's a stat that shows that the Chiefs are not the top team in the league that has benefited from bad calls. I think the Bills actually are. I know about that, but listen, in the big games this year, and the Chiefs played almost every game they played was on prime time. So many of them were one possession games. So many of them had calls in them that went the Chiefs' way. You think about the Atlanta game where there was just a blatant no call in the end zone. You go back to the Super Bowl against the Eagles, the James Bradbury hold, which was a hold, but didn't have to be called, I guess you can say. But the Chiefs, and then in that Texans game, the Will Anderson roughing, I think that's going to get called a whole bunch against a bunch of different quarterbacks. Sometimes it will, sometimes it won't. But the obvious slide where he gets hit on the slide by the linebacker to that one was very questionable. And then seeing Patrick kind of get into the flop movement, that's the last thing. It's the last thing that the Chiefs detractors wanted to see is now you got Patrick Mahomes kind of taking it to his advantage, that the referees are going to throw the flag pretty much anytime the guy gets breathed on. So that has started to go against the Chiefs. However, if they three-peat, I think it'll be an amazing accomplishment. They got to get by the Bills first. It's going to be a great game. Should be a tremendous, tremendous game between these two teams that know each other. The head coaches know each other. They know how they play. And the key is they know how they have to play against each other. And the Bills told you that in that regular season matchup this year when they only had a slim lead on the Chiefs and it was fourth down. They had the ball and they said, we're going for it. I think it was early in the fourth quarter. And what happened was Josh Allen ripped off a 26-yard touchdown run, if I believe. And that was all because they knew that when they play the Chiefs, you can't leave points on the board. You can't leave opportunities on the board. You can't give the Chiefs the ball with a certain amount of time left in a game and be up and expect that you are going to hold on to that lead. You have to be aggressive. D'Amico inexplicably kicked a field goal in that game that was shocking to me, but very early, in the fourth quarter, at one point, he went for it on fourth down when people thought that they should have punted. Now they wound up getting the ball back. The Chiefs didn't score, but they got the ball back much further away from the end zone from where they were. But I felt like D'Amico made the right decision on that fourth and long. I think it was 4th and 11, because again, you're playing the Chiefs and you got to figure whatever you think in your mind you need to score or you can score to win, you almost have to add 7. Add 3 to 7 because the Chiefs are going to figure out a way to score points. And that's what they do. That game, if you remember what I said last week about that game, Chiefs-Texans, what I said was I expected the Texans, even though I don't like the Texans a little bit, even though I know they have offensive line issues, even though I know that they have just complete offensive disruption issues that showed very clearly against a Chiefs team that has much better defense than what the Texans are used to. And of course, the Chiefs weren't going to turn the ball over 5 times like the Chargers did in the first round. Even though I knew all that, I felt like the Chiefs had enough of a run game and enough from C.J. Stroud to keep it close for a little bit. And then I said in the preview show last week that it'll be a close game. And then in the late third, fourth quarter, the Chiefs would start to pull away. And lo and behold, the Texans were up 13-12. And then, of course, they leave. It's not that they left Kelce alone on the 11-yard touchdown. That was an amazing play by Mahomes, who climbed the pocket, was getting sacked. He's falling forward, and he amazingly throws the ball to Travis Kelce for the touchdown. And then that gives them the 20-12 lead. And then from there, it's 23-12, then 23-14. The game was essentially over to me when you could say when Kelce caught the touchdown, put them up 8. Then again, the Chiefs had to go. The Texans decided that they needed to go for it on 4th and long. They didn't get it. Why didn't they get it? Because two guys, right? And this is the story of the playoffs here for a lot of teams. 2 guys could not block George Karlaftis. The Chiefs, you want to call him second best pass rusher, or he could be third best pass rusher. Obviously, Chris Jones is their most disruptive player, their best pass rusher, but they have a lot of guys who can rush the passer. But Karlaftis, they specifically assign the left tackle and the running back to block Karlaftis, and neither of them could. Neither of them could even attempt to put a good block on Karlaftis. And of course, CJ Stroud gets sacked, and that's the end of that. And that is the story of the Texans' season. Inability to have a functional offense, a functional passing offense, and be able to protect CJ Stroud, who played a gutty game, man. The guy took a lot of hits. He played well. 245. He did not throw an interception. Didn't throw a touchdown. Ran a little bit more than usual and took a lot of hits. But that's what's going to happen when you play the Chiefs. And again, this game went exactly the way I thought it went. And when Kelsey caught that touchdown and the Chiefs go up 8 and it's the start of the fourth quarter, you pretty much know that it's do or die for the Texans, and they died on that fourth down because they simply can't block one player. It's one thing if it's a one-on-one block with one of your best linemen and one of their best pass rushers, and you just can't block it because the guy is just better than you. They had two guys asked to block Karlaftis, and neither of them could do it. And that's why the Texans couldn't advance, and they've got a lot of work to do this offseason to get themselves better. I think the Texans can be a very good team next year. They'll get their receivers back. Obviously it was Nico Collins on an island there after Stephon Diggs got hurt. And of course, Tank Dell got hurt. We'll see what happens with those two guys as they come back. I think the Texans can be a very good team next year, but they have to address their offensive line issues. I mean, it was disgraceful when you have CJ Stroud out there and you can't protect him, when you can't block one guy with two players. Disgraceful. So they need to figure that out, because they better not ruin Stroud's career because they can't figure out a way to keep him upright. He's a special player. I still think he's a special player despite the way the year went. And he's going to be a good quarterback for years to come. But if they don't protect him the correct way, they're asking for trouble. So we'll see what happens, what they do there. The story of last week's games was turnovers. All right. You've heard us talk about this on the podcast all week long. The winning teams, Kansas City, Washington, Philadelphia, Buffalo, did not turn the ball over a single time last week. The losing teams, that would be the Texans, the Lions, the Rams, and the Ravens, accounted for 8 turnovers. All right. You can make an argument in 3 of these 4 games that the team that turned the ball over, the losing team, if they cut down by 1 or 2, that they win the game. You could say that about Baltimore. They lost by 2. And we'll talk about Lamar in a second, because he did at the end of the game what he had to do despite the 2 turnovers. The Eagles, they won by 6. There was a late charge by Matthew Stafford. I'm sure they watched the tape and thought, man, if Kyron Williams just protects the ball a little bit better and doesn't fumble there when he did, then maybe, before the snow came and everything, maybe if we'd scored more points, we would have given ourselves a better chance. But fumbles will kill you. And Stafford lost one, Kyron Williams lost one, and that was the story of the game for the Rams. Of course, not being able to stop Saquon Barkley. But even with Barkley running crazy, Barkley ran crazy on them again. All right? He went nuts. He had 205 yards, 2 touchdowns. It's a 6-point game at the end, and the Rams are looking at 2 times that they turn the ball over compared to the Eagles, who played a clean game, as they typically do. And then Washington, Detroit. Now, earlier in the year, the Lions won a game where they turned the ball over 5 times. But guess what? You can't expect to do that in the playoffs and win. 3 interceptions, 1 lost fumble, 4 turnovers. Not good. Oh, I'm sorry. 3 interceptions by Jared Goff, right? There was also 1 by Jamison Williams. I know that the Lions have pulled out trick play after trick play after trick play all year long. I know it's a part of their identity. It goes back to the year before against Cowboys when they ran a great trick play and the refs took it away from them for no good reason. There was a botched referee call. And ever since then, it seemed like they've gone scorched earth on the NFL and their opponents by yanking out 3 or 4 trick plays a game. But the Jamison Williams one, which again, I'm not going to kill him for because it's worked all season long. But in a game like that where you don't have total control of it, and you're not looking to put go for the jugular when you're kind of behind and you're scratching and clawing and it's a do or die situation. You've already had a couple of turnovers from your quarterback. To put the ball in your hands of your wide receiver on a play like that, to have him throw and then get intercepted is just brutal. Just brutal. And it's unfortunate for the Lions. I feel for them. I feel for their fan base. I thought that if the Lions won this game against the Commanders and went to the NFC Championship, you could bookmark them for the Super Bowl. I feel that way. I felt that they were that good. If they were playing the Eagles this weekend, I tell you, I would have picked the Lions to win because I just had faith in them, but they did not. But they will be good going forward. I know people are understandably saying that now their window is closing because they've lost Ben Johnson, they've lost Aaron Glenn. Listen. The roster is very, very good. If anything, you've seen that Jahmyr Gibbs being a back who handles almost all of the workload, even though David Montgomery came back. He played, he had seven carries. Jahmyr Gibbs has shown you in just his second year that he's one of the elite running backs in the league and maybe the most elite dual threat running back now in the NFL. Saquon Barkley can catch passes. He can hurt you. He is not running routes like Jahmyr Gibbs. Jahmyr Gibbs is sort of reminds me of the modern day. Well, Christian McCaffrey and Jahmyr Gibbs are more comparable. McCaffrey's been hurt, so we'll see what happens when he comes back next year. But those two guys are the premier dual threat running backs in the league in that they can absolutely kill you on the ground and in the air every single game, and usually with a mix of both. Barkley will kill you on the ground, and occasionally he'll catch a wheel, he'll catch a seam. He's not a guy that they're throwing the ball to, 6-7 times a game. I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs had 105 rushing yards, and he also had 11 targets. He had 6 catches for 70 yards. That's not really what you're seeing from Barkley. So when you're just talking about the premier dual threat running backs in the game, Jahmyr Gibbs is in that echelon now. And he may be the next McCaffrey, depending on what McCaffrey looks like when he's coming back from all these injuries, but they use him the same way. He is that explosive and dynamic of a two-way threat. So the Lions have a very good offensive line that should be kept intact. The running game is there. Amon-Ra St. Brown is there, going to be there for a while. Laporta should be there for a while. Jameson Williams still on a rookie deal, I believe, should be there. Now, I'm sure some cap numbers are going to go up. I know Goff signed a huge extension. They do have to figure out a way with their money situation to be able to keep guys. Aiden Hutchinson will have to be extended at some point after the next year, I believe. So they'll have issues on who they can retain and who they can't going forward, but their nucleus and foundation is still intact, and they still have Dan Campbell. And I will give Dan Campbell, who has played in the league for a long time and coached for quite a bit, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt that he's going to have some guys in mind to come in to take over as OC and DC that are going to do that. He could promote from within. He can go outside. I think coaching is so important. The Lions show you that talent. Yeah, you have to have the talent though. And the Lions have the talent. So as long as they get some good, adequate coaches in, I think that they'll be fine. But turnovers did them in. Turnovers did the losing teams in. And I have a feeling that'll be the same case this weekend in the conference championship games when the Eagles play the Commanders, when the Chiefs play the Bills. It'll be about the teams that protect the ball the best, that play ball control the best. And I think these will be 2 close games, and they will probably come down to 2 or 3 swing plays that will make the difference. And kicks, special teams, kicks will be vital. And I'm not sure, which kicker I'm trusting in these situations. Certainly Jake Elliott has had his issues for the Eagles. The Commanders have had kicking issues with their kicker who doinked one in a week or 2 ago in that game, that first round game they played. So against Tampa, the Chiefs, they're good with Butker. He should be fine. Bills generally pretty good. So I think it's more of an NFC issue. But that in these games, it usually comes down to there's going to be one of these 2 games is probably going to come down to a drive in the fourth quarter, a significant play, maybe a field goal, maybe something on special teams. It always factors in. So you got to watch that. But number one is ball security. And last week showed you that if you are loose with the football, it doesn't matter if you're the better team, you'll lose. I do think the Lions are the better team than the Commanders, but they lost because they were loose with the football. And I think after watching Ravens-Bills, and I believe I said this last week, I picked the Bills to win because they were in Buffalo, because I knew there would be some elements, and you saw the snow coming down in the game before, mid, after. And Josh Allen almost never loses at home in the playoffs to I think his record is, I don't know, something 10-1, 11, something crazy. Josh Allen almost never loses at home. And I had a feeling the Bills would figure out a way to win. But I also said that I think the Ravens overall are the better team. I think they're the better 53-man roster. And I think on a neutral field, they're a better team. And I still think that. I do. I think what happens is you have to have some things go your way to when you have two titans like that collide. And what happens was Mark Andrews drops a pass in the end zone. Well, I mean, first of all, Mark Andrews had a fumble. Mark Andrews almost never fumbles. Never. I mean, the guy is one of the most sure-handed pass catchers in the NFL. He fumbles, right? Of course, Lamar also had a bad interception as well. But for those who are saying, Lamar once again showed you he can't win a big game, I think that that's nonsense. I hope that we're past that, even though Lamar has not won a Super Bowl and even though he's not playing in the conference championship this weekend. I know he had an interception that looked bad. Trust me, I saw it. It looked bad. He was getting hit. He should have done better. However, he also put the team on his back when he needed to. He threw two really impressive touchdowns, okay, including when they were down by 8, driving the Ravens down the field, 88 yards in 8 plays and hitting Likely for the 24-yard touchdown pass, which was a beautiful touchdown pass. All right, both of his passes, the one to Bateman and the one to Likely, were really nice. All right, he did his job. Did he turn the ball over once, and was it crucial? Yeah, once. Okay, he had one interception, and it's never great, but it's not like he also had a fumble lost. I forgot about that. Definitely got to take that into account. But despite his 2 turnovers, when he needed to, when the offense needed him to be a Superman quarterback, a franchise-type quarterback, an MVP caliber quarterback, he is an MVP quarterback, did he lead the Ravens down the field and get the touchdown that they needed? He absolutely did. Unflappably. And then on the 2-point conversion, did he give Mark Andrews a ball that Mark Andrews should have caught? Yes, absolutely. Are we having a different conversation about Lamar Jackson today if Mark Andrews catches that 2-point conversion? That I'm not 100% sure about, because there was still time on the clock. And if they tie the game there at 27-27, then the Ravens still have to stop the Bills from getting into field goal territory. I'm not sure that they do that. I'm not sure that they don't. I'm not sure that they do. But the bottom line is Lamar Jackson overcame some sloppiness, overcame some of his interceptions, and put the Ravens in position to win that game. Go back to what we think about Jalen Hurts in the Super Bowl. Jalen Hurts had the turnover, the only turnover, and it really factored into the outcome as the Eagles lost a 1-possession game to the Chiefs, right? And if you could say to yourself, if he doesn't fumble and have it returned by Nick Bolton for a touchdown, then maybe the Eagles win that game. But nobody looks and says that Jalen Hurts played a terrible game. He was amazing that game. He did everything a quarterback should do in that game to put his team in position to win. And nobody says now, even with his flaws in the passing game, even with some regression, nobody says now that you expect Jalen Hurts to just shrivel up on a big stage and not be able to play well. If he doesn't play well, it's because the pass offense in general this year hasn't played well. It's not because he wasn't big enough to meet a moment. He met the moment in the Super Bowl, and he played really well. It just so happens that the Chiefs took advantage of a few mistakes that the Eagles made that day and won the game. And they're going for their 3rd straight Super Bowl. So it shows you what the Eagles were up against that day. All right. Same thing with Lamar. Lamar has won MVPs. I know he doesn't have a Super Bowl. I know in other playoff games in the past, he has left plays on the table that made you think that he's just not ready. This was not the game. This was not that game. Lamar was great in this game. They just didn't win. And sometimes that happens. And the funny thing about this game was that it was kind of billed by myself. I said I thought this game had potential to be the game of the year. And I kind of envisioned like Lamar and Josh Allen just going at it, gunslinging, balls in the air, touchdowns here, touchdowns here. It wasn't like that. Again, Lamar only threw for 2 touchdowns. Josh Allen didn't even throw a touchdown pass. He passed for 127 yards. I'm not taking anything away from him. I'm just saying the complexion of the game was far different than I think a lot of us expected it to be. The Bills ran the ball really well, or decently well, I should say. I mean, Ty Johnson continues to be a very good changeup back for them. James Cook gutted a few out. He had 67 yards overall. Yeah, a couple more receiving, but it was just a balanced offense for the Bills. They didn't do any one thing particularly great. In fact, like I mentioned, all of the losing teams had more yards than the winning team. So the Ravens had a better third down conversion. They were 7 of 10. They had more yards than the Bills did, a lot more yards, 416 to 273. All right. So the story of the game was just turnovers, and it enabled the Bills to possess the ball a little bit longer, to convert the third downs that they needed to make, to get, the field goals, and the 1-yard touchdown run by Davis was important for them, tying the game after Baltimore took the lead. So they did what they were supposed to do. Nothing flashy. That has really been, to me, what this NFL playoffs season has been about. The Eagles are not the flashiest offensive team. They just give you 2 or 3 explosive run games from Saquon Barkley, and it looks really nice when that happens. I mean, it looks incredible. But, you've seen their passing offense. It's not poetry in motion. The Chiefs have struggled at times to move the ball, not poetry in motion. The Commanders are playing some pretty exciting football, but they don't have 3 or 4 guys who are just surreal offensive players. They other than the quarterback who's played out of his mind, and Terry McLaurin who's played well, they're just basically a veteran offense and a veteran defense who have guys who play well, who play smart, and then a quarterback that is just playing out of his mind right now and giving them some unbelievable plays. All right. And then the same thing I said with the Eagles, and the Bills. The Bills they're giving you great play from Josh Allen, but he didn't have to have a 300-yard, 5-touchdown game to beat the Ravens. This is a very workmanlike NFL playoff so far, and it'll be really interesting to see how this all shakes out and who's going to play in 2 Sundays in New Orleans in the Super Bowl. I tell you right now, it could be any team. There is not one team, to me. Sometimes when you get into the conference championship round or even the divisional round, there's always that one team that just stands out. You'd be like, man, I'd be surprised if this team didn't win the Super Bowl, or this team looks clearly like the Super Bowl champion. I thought that about the Lions. Clearly, I was wrong. They're out. Not only did they lose, but they had the biggest margin of defeat among all the 8 teams, the 4 teams that lost. So that was surprising to me. And now I look at it. Now DraftKings has the Eagles as the favorite to win the Super Bowl now, which is very interesting. They didn't start the divisional round as the favorite to win. It was the Chiefs. And the Chiefs had the second largest margin of victory among all 4 teams that won. They won by 9. All right. The Commanders in their upset won by 14. So all of a sudden, the Eagles, who were on the ropes there in the fourth quarter and got a huge play there by Jalen Carter to save the season, all of a sudden the Eagles have leapfrogged the Chiefs to become the favorite to win the Super Bowl on DraftKings. I believe it was plus 450 last I looked, and the Chiefs and Bills are tied at plus 225. I am guessing that's because it's because the odds makers see that the Eagles at least have what you would call an easier route to the Super Bowl than the Chiefs. The Chiefs have to get by an opponent that they've already lost to, and B, I think you look at Chiefs and the line reflects it, and you say anybody can win this. This is a toss-up game. Nobody would be surprised if either team won this game. It's not an upset. When you look at the Eagles Commanders, despite how well the Commanders have played, the Eagles are by far the better 53-man roster, right? So it would be a surprise. And they're also at home. There would be a surprise if the Commanders beat the Eagles from an odds maker standpoint. So that's why the Eagles have now jumped the Chiefs, because the Eagles have more of a shot to be guaranteed to be in the Super Bowl than the Chiefs do. It'll be interesting to see what the line will say or be if it winds up being Eagles Chiefs in the Super Bowl again. That thing might flip, the favorite to win, the line, everything like that. But right now, it's a tougher sled for the Chiefs just to get to the Super Bowl because they have to play the Bills, right? And that's why the odds makers are saying this is what makes the Eagles right now, as you sit here today, more of a favorite to win the Super Bowl than the Bills or the Chiefs. Should be a fascinating game. So let's talk about the Chiefs and the Bills. The Bills beat the Chiefs this year. They know how to beat them now. They're confident in that. So they're not going to go into Kansas City feeling intimidated. You watch the Bills play and you feel like that they feel they're a team of destiny, that it's their year, that Sean McDermott has pushed all the right buttons, that they are probably best positioned offensively and defensively, but especially offensively this year to be able to win this game. They are not reliant on one guy. They no longer have to satisfy Steph Diggs with, X amount of targets. The offense doesn't run through any one in particular player. If anything, they run the ball a lot more frequently and better ever since Joe Brady took over as their offensive coordinator last year. And you've seen James Cook really develop into a fantastic running back. And you've seen the Bills be able to control games with their running game. And then have Josh Allen be the complementary piece in their running game when he keeps the ball. You've seen Josh Allen become a distributor of the football. When they traded for Amari Cooper, I think some people thought that this would be sort of their next Steph Diggs. It's not been that way. They are much more balanced offensively. They can throw the ball to Cooper. They can throw the ball to Shakir, the receiver from Boise State, who's really stepped up this year. They can throw the ball to their tight ends, Kincaid, Knox. They can throw the ball to their running backs if they want. So they can throw the ball to Mac Hollins. They have a very difficult offense to game plan for, because there's not one guy that you're going to take out and say, we've done our job. That used to be the Belichick thing to do, which is, all right, we're going to take their best player, offensive player, out and make their secondary players beat us. And the Patriots won a lot of games with that formula. There is no formula that way against this Bills team. The guy you got to take out is Josh Allen, but he's not throwing the ball all over the place anymore and giving you those opportunities. They're running the ball well. Their offensive line has played ridiculously well. And then they can control the clock by running with Cook, running with Allen. And then on third down, what happens is Allen's ability to keep plays alive as a runner and as a guy who will climb the pocket, as a guy who will get out of the pocket, allows his receivers time to get open. He hits them. He's done a good job of keeping his eyes down the field when he scrambles and made plays. And the fact is, he's done a great job of not turning the ball over like he used to. And this is what's going to be the challenge for the Chiefs, is how are they going to consistently get the Bills to punt? Because the Chiefs themselves are not an offensive juggernaut anymore. They win because of their defense. They win because they can rush the passer. But what happens when the passer who you are rushing is A, well protected, unlike CJ Stroud, and B, can become a runner and make plays outside of structure? That is going to be a big, big challenge for the Chiefs, to figure out a way to make the Bills punt the ball and not have long, sustainable drives. On the opposite end, the Chiefs probably can score against this Bills defense, because this is a Bills defense that I think is probably better as the sum of the whole as opposed to its individual parts. They don't have a bunch of guys who stick out as just top 3 or top 4 in their position, but Sean McDermott has done an excellent job of creating confusion on the back end, having his guys prepared, having excellent plans for what he wants to do, causing turnovers. The Bills can take the ball away. They are good like that. And you have to credit Sean McDermott. And he's got an advantage here in one way. The Chiefs have a real issue at left tackle. They have taken their all-pro left guard, Joe Thuney, and moved him to left tackle because their left tackle that they drafted in the second round couldn't hold up. The backup couldn't hold up. All right. Then they signed DJ Humphries, the veteran who used to be on the Cardinals, was a good Pro Bowl. I think he was a Pro Bowl left tackle at one point. Not a perennial Pro Bowl, but he was good enough to hold the fort down, which is all Patrick Mahomes needs. He doesn't need tackles to be elite. He just needs them to be able to hold the fort down. My gosh, they've survived with Jawan Taylor at right tackle, who's a penalties machine, and been able to win 15 games this year and 2 Super Bowls, just having Jawan Taylor be adequate. So they need somebody at left tackle who can be adequate, which is why they've moved Joe Thuney to left tackle. He's not a tackle. He's a really good guard, and he's holding his own here at left tackle. But now you're going up against a Bills defense that can come at you. Again, not a great defense, but knows what to do, can scheme against you. And Patrick Mahomes is going to be on the run quite a bit. And he's going to be frustrated in this game quite a bit. This is another game that I think is going to go down to the wire. I think if the Chiefs are up at any point in the fourth quarter, they will win the game, because that's what they do. They win close games. I think if the Bills are able to be up in the fourth quarter, if they're up by a lot, you're really liking their situation. If they're up by a field goal, 6 points, something in that 3 to 6 range, they're going to have to stay aggressive like they did in the regular season game. They're going to have to figure out a way to get that 3 to 5 point lead, somewhere to 7 to 8, to win that game. Because if it's only 3 to 5 and Mahomes has the ball with 2.5 minutes left, 3 minutes left, 4 minutes left, not good situation for the Bills. The Bills have to figure out a way in this game to learn from what they learned in the first game, but then work off of it. They have got to figure out a way to get a possession or more lead in the fourth quarter. If they do that, I believe they will win the game and go to the Super Bowl. I believe this Bills team has the best chance to beat this Chiefs team yet, but I can't sit here and say that the Chiefs aren't going to win this game because of their left tackle issues or their inability to put the ball down the field like they used to. I can't say that. They won 15 games. They won 15. What was it? They played, obviously it was an 18-game season. They basically played, they have one loss. Their one loss was to the Bills, right? I mean, they did every other game. The season-ending game, they started Carson Wentz. I'm not counting that, all right? So, no, despite what everybody has said about the Chiefs this year, they're not this, they're not that, they have issues, yada, yada. They lost one game to the Bills, all right? That's it, that they tried to win. I'm not counting the end of the season game. They went 15-2, but to me, they went 15-1. So that's why the task at hand is very simple if you're the Bills. You've got to figure out a way to attack the left side of the Chiefs offensive line. And when you get Mahomes on the run, you got to plaster your coverage, especially against Kelsey. I don't understand how the Ravens figured out a way to leave Kelsey wide open last week on one of those plays. It's mind-boggling to me that this guy can still be left wide open at all. Again, the 11-yard touchdown, that was a little bit different. That's not the play I'm talking about. I think it was the 49-yard catch he had where he was wide open. So you can't leave him wide open. The Bills got to figure out a way to attack the left side to force Mahomes into a turnover or two because he's trying to be a hero and make a play on the run, or he's about to get sacked and he tries to throw the ball to somebody while he's getting sacked. You got to break those passes up and step in front of them and take advantage of them. You have to plaster. All right. The Texans couldn't do it. Can the Bills do it? To me, that's the key. That is the key to the game. And again, I think I would expect that both teams will play clean games, but I'm going to say whoever wins the turnover differential, if there is a turnover, is going to wind up winning the game. It's going to be a great game. I expect it to be a fascinating game. That's why it's the night game. Everybody in the world, in the NFL is looking forward to seeing it. It's 1 versus 2 as far as the seeding goes. Commanders, Eagles, I was going to try to wait before I recorded this to see the injury situation, especially for the Eagles. But you know what? I expect that everybody's going to play for them. You just don't know. Is Cam Jurgens back? Could it flare up in the middle of the game? Sure, it could. Dallas Goedert, he's come in. He's been on. Well, he hasn't been on IR twice. He was on IR once, but then he missed several weeks earlier in the year with an injury. This is the second time he's been dealing with an ankle. He seems to have to be dealing with an injury week after week after week. I mean, the guy plays a punishing, brutal, physical game, and he is a difference maker. And in fact, I would tell you that if he's healthy, the pass offense should probably run through Dallas Goedert in this game, because I think the Commanders are going to come after Jalen Hurts, and I think Hurts is going to need answers immediately. He's going to need outlets immediately. He's going to need the kind of play from Dallas Goedert that he got from Dallas Goedert against the Packers when the Packers showed a zero pressure look and Jalen checked out of the play and immediately threw the quick screen to Goedert, who then shoved what was that cornerback's name? Valentine. He stiff-armed him 3 different times on the way to the end zone. That's the kind of physical presence that the Eagles get from Dallas Goedert and A.J. Brown, but they haven't been able to get that from A.J. Brown in weeks. They can get catches. They can move the chains on stop routes, on slants through A.J. Brown, but you have not seen a vintage A.J. Brown 40-yard touchdown down the field where he uses the late hands or he maneuvers a push off, or on a bang 8 play where the corner is providing tight coverage, but he's just more physically stronger, more dominant to get off the press or to use his body as a shield to catch the ball, to turn upfield and explode for a touchdown. You just haven't seen that from A.J. Brown in, like 2 months. All right. And then he had an opportunity against the Rams. The ball was in his hands and he couldn't secure it. It was wet. Listen, that was probably more weather related. He's taken a lot of heat for not catching that ball. It was in his hands. He was catching it. He was turning around, and then the ball comes out of his hands, his grasp. Okay, probably because it's snowing, it's raining, freezing, it's wet, it's icy. I'm sure his arms were wet. I mean, it's hard to secure the ball. Everybody had ball security issues in that game. Rams had it worse. But that's probably why he dropped that ball. But the bottom line is that was one shot. You used to see A.J. Brown 4 or 5 times a game when things are right, making plays down the field, and you just aren't seeing it anymore. You're not getting a physically imposing presence from him. You will get it from Goedert. But if Goedert is banged up and if his ankle is prohibiting him in any way, and he's not blocking well against this very, very tough Commanders front, and he's not making physical plays in the field, if he's catching the ball and just falling down, there is an element to that a physical element that has always defined this Eagles offense that will be missing. If you're not getting it from Goedert and you're already not getting it from A.J. Brown, how are you being intimidating? You know you're going to get a couple of big runs from Saquon. That's one way, but that is not physical intimidating. Physically intimidating is when your offensive line pushes the defensive line off the ball, like you did see against the Rams at times. But what happens if Jurgens with the back isn't doing that? And by the way, this is a really good Commanders front too. These guys don't get pushed around on a daily basis. I know that they're not great against the run. They've gotten better as the year has gone on. Luvu is a tough physical player. Wagner has been a tough physical player for years. Played on the most physically tough defense that you've ever seen in the last 20, 25 years on that Seattle team, okay? Payne is tough. Allen is tough. Newton's tough. They have good, tough, physical, aggressive players. Even Chin's a safety, but he plays like a linebacker. The Eagles have to be physically tough in this game. And if they're banged up a lot, that might make it a little difficult. Remember, even Lane Johnson was on the injury report with a knee. He practiced, but a knee. So, and of course, it goes without saying that if Jalen Hurts does not have his running ability, and if Jalen Hurts is having trouble throwing, now it's not his drive leg, that's the back leg. That's fine for him. It's his plant leg. But you have to be able to transfer your weight from your drive leg to your plant leg. And if it's like a foundation, if there's a crack in your foundation, doesn't matter if 80% of the foundation is strong, that crack in the foundation will structurally hurt you. And if his plant leg is not great and he can't transfer the weight on some of his throws, it means he'll have to be more all arm and back leg, which you can put your power and torque there, but you might sail one if you can't plant and finish the throw. Your accuracy is the issue, not the power. It will become an accuracy issue if you can't follow through onto that plant leg. So we'll have to see. The Eagles don't throw the ball a whole lot anyway, but the last thing you would want is uncharacteristic interceptions because Jalen's just not throwing the ball the way he normally does when he's healthy. So you already know running might be an issue with him, and the Commanders are going to adjust accordingly. They're going to challenge him. They're going to come after him. You heard the defensive coordinator, Joe Witt Jr., basically say, if he runs the ball, we're going to treat him like a running back and hit him. Some people got upset by that. I don't know why. That's absolutely what you would do to a running back or a running quarterback. You would hit him. I don't even know why Joe Witt Jr. even had to say that other than it's stating the obvious. The quarterback runs with the ball and you have a chance to tackle him, you're going to hit him. So the Commanders are going to come after him. I would expect a lot of man defense on the back end. I would expect some pressure. In fact, you saw that from the Rams. The Rams decided they were going to rush 5, sometimes 6. They were going to show exotic looks, and they were okay with giving up some big plays for the opportunity to get pressure on Jalen Hurts, and they got pressure on Jalen Hurts. And Hurts took some bad sacks in that game, and I'm sure the Commanders saw that. I'm sure the Commanders saw on tape against the Packers that when the Packers were down 10-0, they started to throw what we call a couple of zero pressure looks, which is basically everybody at the line of scrimmage. And if you're not at the line of scrimmage, you're in man coverage. Okay. So it's an all out blitz. Now the Packers would wind up dropping a lot. They were showing it, but dropping. But that was enough to confuse Hurts and the offense at times so that you saw unnecessary sacks. You saw incompletions. You saw Hurts getting blitzkrieged and having to get rid of the ball and dirt the ball at times against the Packers, and sacks that put them at a field goal position. Those are the kind of plays the Commanders are going to see on tape, and they're going to say, all right, we know Saquon's going to get 2 or 3 on us. We will do our best to keep him contained. If we can keep him to 150 and 1 touchdown, can we then force the Eagles offense to be defunct enough so that our guys, when we score, we're going to be able to score points and keep them off the scoreboard. Now, the Commanders got their own issue to battle. Their best offensive lineman, right guard Sam Cosmi, tore his ACL against the Lions. Now they got to play a guy, Trent Scott, veteran, adequate, not great, but this Commanders offensive line isn't great to begin with. It's been very almost overachieving is the word Adam used, and I agree with him, but it's hard to continue to overachieve when your best player is not out there with you. And that's going to put pressure on your quarterback, your rookie quarterback, who has already exceeded expectations, to continue to kind of make up the difference, to continue to be unbelievable. And look, he's been great. Jaden Daniels, I don't know, you can't take anything away from the guy. I think he's been special. I mentioned throughout the week that no rookie quarterback has ever won or made it to a Super Bowl. They're 0-5 in conference championship games, and the 5 are Brock Purdy. We saw it 2 years ago against the Eagles in the conference championship game, got hurt. They got killed. Joe Flacco, when he was a rookie, Mark Sanchez, Sean King from Tampa Bay in 99, I think it was. They lost 11-9 to the Rams. And then who did I say? Flacco, Purdy, Sanchez. There's one more. Big Ben. Big Ben lost in the conference championship as a rookie. But there is one quarterback that jumps to mind right now, because I mentioned Sean King losing to the St. Louis Rams. Technically, Kurt Warner was not a rookie in 1999. He was with the Rams in 1998. He actually played in one game, threw 11 passes, was 4 of 11. So when he took over for Trent Green, when Trent Green got hurt in the preseason 99, he was not a rookie, but you're talking about a guy who had thrown 11 passes in his career. So by all intents and purposes, he was a rookie in 1999. And he did go to the Super Bowl. And as most people know, he won the Super Bowl. 23-16 over the Tennessee Titans, one of the most exciting Super Bowls of the 90s, a game that ended on a pass to, I think the receiver's name was Kevin Dyson, and he winds up getting tackled at the goal line. So Tennessee loses because he gets tackled at the goal line down 23-16. So that if he had scored, it would have been 23-22, and then the PAT would have made it 23-23. And of course, you don't know what happens from there. And Dick Vermeil wins, former Eagles coach. He wins with the Rams, gets his Super Bowl. Great coach that he is. Kurt Warner throws for 414 yards in that game, 2 touchdowns. It was really an exciting game. But yeah, Kevin Dyson was the guy who got tackled at the goal line. Now, my point in saying all this is that it was pretty amazing for Kurt Warner in his first year to be able to do that, to go win as many games. They were 13-3. They stomped out the Minnesota Vikings in the first round. And then they beat Sean King and the Tampa Bay Bucks 11-6 in the conference championship. And then, of course, they win the Super Bowl against the Titans. For all intents and purposes, that was the first year for Kurt Warner. And Kurt Warner was special from the start. Jaden Daniels has looked special from the start. Now, he doesn't have 3 Hall of Famers around him the way Kurt Warner did with Marshall Faulk, Orlando Pace at left tackle, obviously his wide receivers, Isaac Bruce, Torrey Holt. I mean, he was just blessed with offensive talent around him, and he himself wound up being special. So the difference is Jaden Daniels has a good offense around him, but not the same. So to me, it's even more impressive if Jaden Daniels can figure out a way to win this game. To me, though, when I compare him to the other 5 quarterbacks that I mentioned, I will say this. Those teams were trying to win on running and defense. The Ravens behind Flacco, of course, the Bucks behind Sean King, Mark Sanchez, ground and pound Jets. Brock Purdy, for the most part, had this great running game on the Kyle Shanahan. He probably threw the ball more than some of those others that I'm mentioning. But nonetheless, that San Francisco's team, had a great defense that just got carved up once everything went down against the Eagles. This Jaden Daniels is not being asked to be hidden. He's making unbelievable plays. He's playing light years ahead of where a rookie quarterback is played, and the game will be in his hands. And the game will be up to him to win or lose because they have entrusted him that way. So in many ways, he can be a little bit like Kurt Warner because he is that special. And if you want to throw Tom Brady in there, it's somewhat of the same thing. By the way, Kurt Warner loses to Tom Brady a few years later, right? Tom Brady in his first year takes over when Drew Bledsoe gets hurt. And if you look at Tom Brady, I know he wasn't a rookie also, but he had fewer attempts his first year than even Warner. He had 3 attempts as a rookie in 2000. Then he takes over in 2001 and wins the Super Bowl after taking over for Bledsoe. This to me, and I'm not telling you I think the Commanders are going to win, but I'm just saying if you're going to compare Daniels to the 5 quarterbacks who've lost in a conference championship game and what was asked of them versus a guy like Kurt Warner or Tom Brady, and even Brady, honestly, was asked to be second fiddle to the defense and the run game. But Brady made a lot of big plays in beating the Rams also. You can't take that away from him. Daniels looks like he's kind of that special, and we'll see. Because in order for the Commanders to beat the Eagles, I truly believe they will have to be completely clean, turnover-free, not going to turn the ball over 5 times and win like they did in that second game against the Eagles. And then, of course, the Commanders' defense is going to have to find an answer to hold the Eagle. That they're going to have. Listen, I think they can. It's not the passing game. They're going to have to keep Saquon from going completely, absolutely batty like Saquon has done against the Rams. If they can contain Saquon, keep him to that 120, 130 area, and then really expose the Eagles' issues right now in passing offense, the Commanders can win this game. I'm not saying they should be a favorite. I'm not saying they're going to win. I am saying that when you look at an ordinary 2 versus 6 seed, you think the 2 seed should win going away, or that if the 2 seed plays their B-plus game they're going to win. No, I think the Eagles got to play a good game here. I think they have to have a really good plan, and I think that they're going to have to create turnovers again to make sure that they win this game. Of course, I'll give my final prediction on the Inside the Birds pregame show with Adam Kaplan and Greg Cosell. As just far as the head coaching goes, I guess most of the spots are filled. We're still waiting on Dallas, still waiting on the Raiders to see what they're going to do. I had alluded to the Lions before. I think that they'll be okay from offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator standpoint. There's a lot of good defensive coordinators. This is the year if you need a defensive coordinator. I mean, Dennis Allen, I know that there's a strong possibility he's going to go to the Bears, but as of me recording this, that's not official. He's a guy that certainly can be has been a very, very good defensive coach in this league. Patrick Graham, because you don't know what's going on with the Raiders and who they're going to hire and if they're going to wind up having a totally clean house. So Patrick Graham and both him and Antonio Pierce would be guys that you could see getting good jobs and being really good for that Lions defense. Robert Saleh, of course, who was not a very good head coach of the Jets, but did put a very good defense on the field with the Jets while he was there. Now he may wind up going back to San Francisco. I have no idea what's going to happen with him, but he's somebody I would take a look at. Mike Zimmer, you always got to look at the tree, right? So Dan Campbell coached and played under Bill Parcells, and Mike Zimmer was Parcells' defensive coordinator for a few years in Dallas. So there's a connection there. So if Mike Zimmer has decided I don't know what his situation is with the Cowboys. It all depends on who their head coach is going to be. Maybe he stays and he's back there. But if he's not back, maybe he's a guy that the Lions could look at. The bottom line is I think that there's a lot of good defensive coordinator talent out there. And I don't think that Dan Campbell is going to have an issue. The offensive coordinator is the guy, that you really want, especially the way this offense was so in sync under Ben Johnson. So could they make Hank Fraley? I know Hank Fraley, their offensive line coach, interviewed for Seattle. Would they be smart to promote him? Perhaps just to keep it in-house. They could definitely go in-house. Or they may want to go look and tap into that Shanahan tree like everybody does when they're looking for an offensive coordinator. There are certainly a lot of interesting names that'll probably cycle through. But I don't think the Lions are going to have that much of an issue finding themselves a good coordinator offensively and defensively. I'm fascinated to see what happens with the Cowboys. It just seems so cowboyish that, they thought they were going to be able to get Mike McCarthy back. They let his contract expire. Now McCarthy's out there. Hey, how about Mike McCarthy? You think maybe if he doesn't get a head coaching job or if there's something that he doesn't love, maybe he becomes the offensive coordinator in Detroit? That would be very interesting as well. I don't know if that's what he wants, but very cowboyish the way things have developed there. And it'll be fascinating to see who they make their next head coach. I know there's a lot of heat around Brian Schottenheimer. We'll see. That's a guy who's very much into analytics, and they'll probably be impressed with him. And he's got a resume in the league, so it would be kind of very cowboyish, but not surprising. They're not going to go with some young guy who's never done the job before. That's not what Jerry Jones does. He likes the guys who've stacked the resume and who want to come in and help win right away. He's not going to pull some quarterbacks coach from Green Bay and say, this is our next head coach, and away we go. That's not Jerry Jones's modus operandi. Be interesting to see if Cliff Kingsbury will get some looks here, depending on what happens with Washington. I know he took himself out of the running, but if there are still openings and if Washington's season's over after this week, well, then maybe things change from that end. All right. Should be. Oh, I got to do my picks. I'm sorry. I do have to do my picks. So I do have to give you my Eagles prediction here. Now, last week I was 3-0-1. I pushed on the Eagles as 6-point favorites. They won by 6. I had the Chiefs covering. I think they won by 9. They were 8.5. So I won that. I took the Commanders to cover. They win outright. So I win there, and I took the Bills to win, and they did as well. They covered the spread. The Bills covered. There was only like 1.5 in that game, and they wound up winning by 2. So covered on that. Yep, just barely covered. But I went 3-0-1. That was my first push of the year, the Eagles push, which is really surprising that it was the first one. So I went 35-25. I'm now 35-25-1 for the year. And I did all 4 games last week. So let's do it now. Bills at Chiefs. I just can't bet against the Chiefs. I can't. I know I built a really good argument on how the Bills can win this game, and they can, but the Chiefs are home. They're only favored by 1.5. Could I absolutely see them winning on a Harrison Butker field goal with like 5 seconds left to go or as time expires? Sure can. Sure can, because that's basically how the Chiefs have won all year long. So I'll take the Chiefs, giving the 1.5 to the Bills. And I'm going to go with a Commanders cover. So I'm not going to give you my full prediction until the Inside the Birds pregame show, but I am taking the Commanders to cover the 6 that they're getting. Not saying they're winning, but I am taking a Commanders cover. So Chiefs win, Commanders cover. Those are my 2 picks. It's been a blast. Can't wait to do this again next week as we give you I'll give you an early Super Bowl preview. I'll wrap up the conference championship games, give you an early Super Bowl preview. And then the week after that, we'll get into even more of a Super Bowl preview, and you'll get my pick. And then it's going to call it a career. Then it's going to call it a season on the 2024 NFL season. Everybody enjoy your conference championship weekend. Catch you on the next one.